Hey folks, welcome back once again to Indaba Africa. This is Chris, and the cover-up continues full speed ahead. Damn the facts, damn the truth, let the cover-up continue as the fake stream, lamestream media seeks to carry the water for Joe Biden as part of a cabal to undermine democracy in America. Oh, is that a strong statement? Indeed it is, but it's also an accurate analysis of what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news today that Glenn Greenwald, the co-founder of the Intercept, has resigned from the Intercept. Let me read this to you from the New York Post. Today, Pulitzer-winning journalist Glenn Greenwald just quit the publication he co-founded, The Intercept, after its editors refused to let him publish an article on Hunter Biden's emails that defended the Post reporting. Now, to be fair, that is a news story that is in the favor of the Post, so let's be objective there. But the following from The Intercept, which throws doubt on what they write just by the nature of what they write. Let me read some excerpts from what The Intercept published today in response to Glenn Greenwald's resignation from the company he co-founded about 6 or 7 years ago. The narrative Glenn presents about his departure is teeming with distortions and inaccuracies, all of them designed to make him appear as a victim rather than a grown person throwing a tantrum. It would take too long to point them all out here, but we intend to correct the record in time. For now, it's important to make clear that our goal in editing his work was to ensure that it would be accurate and fair. While he accuses us of political bias, it was he who was attempting to recycle the dubious claims of a political campaign, the Trump campaign, and launder them as journalism. We have the greatest respect for the journalist Glenn Greenwald used to be, and we remain proud of much of the work we did with him over the past 6 years. It is Glenn who has strayed from his original journalistic roots, not The Intercept. We have no doubt that Glenn will go on to launch a new media venture where he will face no collaboration with editors, such as the era of Substack and Patreon. In that context, it makes good business sense for Glenn to position himself as the last true guardian of investigative journalism and to smear his longtime colleagues and friends as partisan hacks. We get it, but facts are facts, and The Intercept's record of fearless, rigorous, independent journalism speaks for itself. Well, I don't read The Intercept, and I'm glad I don't now, because clearly these clowns have no concept of objective journalism. They actually insult the co-founder of their company with a sentence like, all of them designed to make him appear as a victim rather than a grown-up person throwing a tantrum. Seriously, is that the language of serious journalism? It is not. That's the language of a juvenile blogger. And this is from a reputable investigative journalist site? Hardly. Now, before you think I'm in the bag for Glenn Greenwald, you don't know much about me and you don't know much about Glenn Greenwald. I have serious issues with Glenn Greenwald's patriotism and his reliability when it comes to reporting on the Snowden case. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So this is hardly a impassioned defense of Glenn Greenwald. It's more an impassioned defense of the truth and the smear and cover-up that's taking place here. Dubious claims of a political campaign, the Trump campaign, and launder them as journalism. What claims are they talking about? They don't bother to detail that here in this smear that they write against Glenn Greenwald, a co-founder of the very company that he resigned from, that they're now smearing. We used to have the greatest respect for the journalist Glenn Greenwald used to be. Well, that is an op-ed. That's not news. That's their opinion. He used to be? What, when he towed the line for the left? Now, I'm not making a claim he did toe the line, but we just talked very quickly about who Glenn Greenwald is and what he's been up to over the years. Well, it seems to me that The Intercept is the group of children throwing a tantrum who's wet their nappies and seems to have issues with what's going on. Now, I mention this because New York Post carried the story today, and Glenn Greenwald appeared once again on Fox News' Tucker Carlson program tonight. He appeared yesterday, as I recall, and again today, this time to announce that he'd resigned from The Intercept. And frankly, based on what he said on Tucker Carlson, I have no objections to his decision. It makes all the sense in the world. He had an agreement with them in a contract, he claims. And if he didn't have a contract that specified this, then he can be called on the carpet for making fraudulent claims. But he declared in front of the world that he had a contract which gave him editorial rights, which they infringed upon. So we'll see what happens there. But Greenwald worked as a constitutional attorney for about a decade before he began blogging about national security back in October of 2005. Now, he's a leftist, and he is anti-Bush and anti-government intrusion into people's lives, and I have no objection to that. I do have an objection to anti-Bush. I think that was unpatriotic, not him, but that crowd at the time. But he then became a contributor for both Salon, an extremely left-wing publication that nobody reads, and The Guardian, an extremely left-wing, anti-American, anti-United Kingdom publication out of the UK. Now, to be fair, The Guardian has excellent coverage of Africa, probably because they have no dog in the fight. And unless they're talking about the United Kingdom's activities in usually pretty balanced. And they have unbelievably good coverage of rugby. So I'll give The Guardian that. But anything that comes to do with the United States or the United Kingdom is entirely biased in virtually every story you ever read in The Guardian. It's leftist drivel. And the fact that it's in print is really unfortunate. But The Guardian also famously e-begs, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with e-begging. They need to make a living. And so if you do watch The Guardian, they ask for a donation, and you might consider it. But he was a very influential columnist on the left wing here in the United States. Now, Greenwald in Brazil, and he lives there for a number of reasons, but one, I think he's concerned about his safety here because he has targeted national intelligence agencies like the CIA and the National Security Agency and gone after them on numerous occasions in his investigative journalism. He most famously is the journalist whom the treasonous Edward Snowden contacted when the egomaniacal Snowden decided that he was the arbiter of what was right and wrong in national security in the United States as a contractor. Not as a serving military member, not as a member of the government, but as a contractor, a third party working on behalf of the United States, ostensibly for our national security. Stole classified information of the highest nature and compromised programs, sensitive intelligence programs that cost tens of billions of dollars to develop because he was butthurt as he saw that as something that the intelligence agencies were using to spy on Americans. Now, that's a legitimate point, but Snowden never approached the Inspector General of the National Security Agency, never approached any U.S. government agency to blow a whistle. He simply decided on his own accord that he was the arbiter of what's right and wrong and put many lives in jeopardy, also resulted in the deaths of many intelligence operatives around the world, in particular in Russia, people who were taken out and executed as a consequence of his disclosures. Now, the selfish, egotistical behavior of Edward Snowden is one reason I had great exception to Glenn Greenwald. I have also watched the movie Citizen 4, which is a documentary done by Pulitzer, I think her name is, a documentary filmmaker, which won an Academy Award. Of course it did, because the left loves to make Academy Awards out of things that undermine America. But my issue with Glenn Greenwald and with Pulitzer is that they've elevated Snowden to some hero status, and he's not a hero. He's an egotistical little twat who found himself in a position where he could undermine America at a time that the left loved his undermining of America. Now, the points made here, Snowden did have legitimate points. The Patriot Act was used to spy on Americans. We know this. But his actions took place long after the Patriot Act had been in place, and it was exposing abuses of the Obama administration and the intelligence community, according to Snowden. But again, the problem I have with this is he didn't follow a path that's there. Now, had he approached the Inspector General of the National Security Agency, had he approached the other government actors who could do this, or even gone to the Attorney General's office, had he done that and no action had taken place, then one would find less fault with him actually exposing what the government was doing. Then he would have been a whistleblower. But as it is, he's not a whistleblower. He simply undermined programs, lost people's lives, and undermined security around the planet. So again, I'm not a major fan of Glenn Greenwald, although I must admit that I've warmed to him over the past couple of years as I watched his reporting. It's been, I think, largely objective, even if it's not been complimentary of the United States. It's been objective. There have been abuses, and he reports on them. But his reporting, it was not just that. He also reported in June of 2013, he reported about a top secret United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court order that required Verizon, the U.S. telecommunications company, to provide National Security Agency with telephone metadata for calls between the U.S. and abroad. He has no business reporting that information. I'm not sure why he thinks he has the right to disclose classified information. I take great issue with that. There is a process in place. Of course, we know that process is now undermined by the Obama administration and actors in the deep state with the fraud on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, with the fraudulent warrants that were issued to surveil Carter Page under the dubious claim that he was a foreign agent when he was actually working for a U.S. intelligence agency. Unbelievable. And then lawyers in the Department of Justice or the FBI fraudulently changing the 302 documents to give the impression that he was not cooperating and that he was a subject when he was not a subject. They simply used that as a door to get in and spy on the incoming president and then the president of the United States in the most vile, disgusting use of our intelligence services targeting American citizens. unbelievable. Simply because they don't like Donald Trump, they contorted the system. So what Snowden claimed, there's a lot of truth to what he said, but his method of going about it was unacceptable. And I took great issue with Glenn Greenwald basically reporting on this, elevating this guy to some sort of hero status. And if you listen to Greenwald, you'll know that he also took issue with Snowden and found him to be a bit of an egotist. And that's the thing that makes it difficult. But I think the problem here is that Glenn Greenwald saw that this was a story that was a once-in-a-lifetime story, and he went with it. And that's where my issue with Glenn Greenwald is. But as far as the situation today, my goodness, how much is the fake stream, lamestream media going to do to cover up the pervasive corruption of the Biden family and the pay-for-play that's been going on? It's interesting when Peter Schweitzer writes about this and reveals these things, there's very little comment on it, even though it's a best-selling book. The media doesn't run with the story. And then it covered up here in the last couple weeks. First off, the story that the New York Post put on about Hunter Biden's laptops. Cover that up. Now the Bobulinski, is that his name? I can't pronounce the guy's name. The business partner of Hunter Biden, who now publicly states that he met with Joe Biden and that Joe Biden was a person that was supposed to receive a percentage of the money kicked back to him from these efforts that were done abroad with the Chinese in particular. So there's now someone on the record whose name was denigrated by the Biden family, by Joe Biden specifically himself, and he's gone on the record. So why is the media covering these things up? If it's not true, if there's no merit to it, why is it that anyone from the Biden campaign who responds to this says, well, we're not going to talk about that. That's just a smear campaign. Well, it doesn't work, folks. It's not simply a smear campaign if you don't address it. If you can prove that it's a smear campaign, if you can disprove the factual evidence is presented, then what are you afraid of? Where's your transparency? Why not be transparent? It's not as if someone's accused Joe Biden of something that is new. The only thing new here is that the claim that Joe Biden actually got money back. But Joe Biden lied to the public when he said he didn't know about his son's business dealings. And also, the media's been carrying the water on the story for well over 2 years. You know, the discredited story about Hunter in Ukraine. It's not discredited. What investigation has been completed? Department of Justice investigation, a government of Ukraine investigation, a FBI investigation. Who did an investigation? No one's done an investigation here. The State Department itself looked into the matters and saw deep concerns about this during the Obama administration, not the Trump administration. So why is the media covering this up? Ladies and gentlemen, we keep hearing that this is the most eventful election in the United States history. I don't know if that's true, but certainly the fate of the nation and the world is at risk here. People in this country look at this election and they go, wow, I can't vote for Donald Trump. He's a misogynist. He's a homophobe. He's a racist. Unfortunately, none of that's true. They can't vote for Donald Trump because he killed 227,000 Americans. Unfortunately, that's not even remotely true. First off, we live in a federal system, and Donald Trump has no control over the Pennsylvania Department of Health, no control over the New York Department of Health, no control over the cities of New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Portland, and Atlanta, all these places that have undermined our country's security with their ludicrous governance and allowing people to march in the streets and be next to each other protesting systemic racism with no social distancing, no protective mask, and the media covering it up and just pretty much looking the other way. And actually hearing people like the mayor of New York say that it's perfectly okay. That's warranted. People should march in the streets and protest systemic racism because magically COVID-19 won't infect them. And if it does, it's a necessary loss. I'm paraphrasing, not his words, but it's necessary because systemic racism is just that bad in America. Only that too is a lie, once again. As today, yet another rapper endorses Donald John Trump. Lil Wayne endorsed Trump today. It's fascinating to see this collage of rappers and urban or black musicians slide over to the Trump camp. Folks, the media has been covering up things for years, and they have been misrepresenting the facts, and it's unfortunate. And in this situation, we see a story here where the Intercept goes to great lengths to denigrate its co-founder, Glenn Greenwald. Again, a person whom I don't have great love lost for, but they attack him using childish language, the language of a 14-year-old on a blog post or writing Twitter comments. That's what this is. It's disgraceful. It's shameful. It's not genuine journalism. I appreciate that it's an op-ed, but it's not really identified as that. They simply put it up really as a news article. But today, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Glenn Greenwald resigned from the company co-founded 7 years ago, The Intercept. And The Intercept took it upon themselves to denigrate his character and write a juvenile post about his at The Intercept. It's unfortunate. And we'll see where it goes from here, folks. But once again, we see the media carrying the water for Joe Biden as he stumbles. When he stumbles, he's dragging himself across the floor, crawling to the finish line in a race that lasted clearly 10 days, if not maybe 2 weeks for Joe Biden. The media did its best. It could covering up for him for months while he hid in his bunker in Delaware, somewhere in a nondescript building, hiding out there. Sorry, nods to Mark Levin. That's where that came from. But hiding out there and not campaigning. This is the most amazing non-campaign in history. Joe Biden has done virtually nothing to campaign for the office of president. He's done nothing to convince Americans that he should be president other than the fact that there's a label next to his name that has a D, says he's a Democrat. And of course, no doubt, just having that gets him 30 to 33% of the electorate just because people simply vote Democrat, regardless of what Democrats do to their lives or the harm or good they do for this nation. And on the flip side, about 27 to 30% of people will do the same as Republicans. So for the people in the middle who haven't voted, and for those who've already voted and you regret your vote, well, that was your fault for voting early. For those who haven't voted, you need to take a look at what's going on here. Look at what the media is doing. Ask the question, why is the media or members of the Biden campaign simply dismissing it? We're not going to talk about that. It's another smear campaign. Why is that? Why doesn't Vice President Joe Biden simply say, listen, these things are being said about my son are simply untrue. The claim that this guy made from California saying that I was present at this dinner isn't true. I wasn't there. Or if he was at the dinner, that's not what it was about. We said something else. Then it's a he said, she said. But here's the problem, folks. To admit that he was at the dinner raises all sorts of other questions. To deny that he was at dinner becomes demonstrably impossible because there were witnesses who were present. So the decades-old Biden pay-for-play RICO corruption activity has been exposed by the New York Post, potentially, and by others. And the media still covers it up. Why do they cover this stuff up? It's unfortunate. Whether you're for Biden or against Biden, you would think you'd want to know. I think we certainly all wanted to know whether Donald Trump was a puppet of Putin as the Mueller investigation drug on and on and on and on and on with a team of Trump-hating lawyers. And we got, of course, despite the best efforts to come up with something, they found nothing of merit there. Read the report. Nothing of merit. And what information you do have is contorted in a fashion to make Trump look in a bad light. Again, folks, not a huge fan of Glenn Greenwald, although I'm warming to him, and not because he resigned today, but because of his reporting for the past year or two. And also was not famously a fan of Donald John Trump as a candidate. I thought he would sell conservatives down the road. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is Twitter and Facebook censoring content. Censoring content. These companies which profit from the exemptions that we as citizens through our representatives in Congress have granted to them so that they don't become the subjects and victims of unwarranted lawsuits based on content produced by creators like myself, putting things on platforms. So they're protected from what we write or say. But Twitter and Facebook have abused those rights and those protections to censor content that they disagree with. It happened again this week when the acting secretary for Customs and Border Protection, or whatever they call ICE and those guys now, see, I don't know what this thing is called, the acting director of that, his tweet was blocked by Twitter. They say he violated standards. And I saw the tweet. He didn't violate any standards of Twitter. And then they came back and apologized after they cleared it later. But the harm was done. And that is what is being done here. Media suppression of information that they disagree with. Not that's factually incorrect. Not that's on. And what is this nonsense about the Fox News sending a document through the United Parcel Service to California and the document disappeared the next day and the flash drive that was in it disappeared only for it to reappear today? And UPS saying, well, the envelope's gone. The envelope's gone. There's a cover-up here. Why would you throw the envelope away on something as sensitive as this that was announced on national news story? If I worked for a company like that, I would have confiscated the envelope and I would have done a thorough investigation or brought out an outside party in to discuss this, and I would have so that it could be fingerprinted so we could see what happened to it. But UPS's story is the envelope has been thrown away and they had fulfilled their obligation to deliver it, and they apologized. Well, what is going on here, folks? Now we can't even trust private mail carriers who carry next day mail. That's a bit disturbing. That's a bit disturbing. The cabal of and those linked with them in the mainstream media or fake stream, lamestream media, those in the finance industry and those in Hollywood and a number of other industries to collude against the United States and against the presidency of Donald Trump is disgraceful. It's really a shame. It's really a shame. This is a sad state of affairs that the country has come to, and one can only hope that this nonsense stops. I think that on the 3rd of November, we have results, which I suspect the media will do their best to say, well, no, we can't say that election is over. Trump won the popular vote, but didn't, because now we have to wait for 3 months for the mail-in ballots to be counted. And only then can we call the election. Let's wait for that to happen on election night, folks. We'll see what happens. Anyway, in the meantime, Glenn Greenwald, co-founder of The Intercept, has resigned from The Intercept, and The Intercept used the occasion to denigrate his character with childish, juvenile attacks on Glenn Greenwald. Well, folks, thanks for listening in. If you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, I hope that you found this interesting and compelling, my thoughts and views on this. And I ask that you take a moment and become a subscriber by pushing that subscription button right down there. Be sure to toggle the bell icon, because if you do that, then when YouTube does notify you, you may be notified of future live streams, special feature guests coming on the program, as well as my prepared videos like this one. Feel free to leave a comment if you'd like, and as long as it's not abusive. And then finally, I ask to smash the like button, because likes drive viewership. Thank you for your time, for your patronage, and for your understanding. And I hope that you found this an interesting video on a critically important topic, the suppression of information about the Biden family and about Joe Biden in particular, less than a week before a national election that decides the fate of our nation and the world. Do you find that reprehensible? I do.